The boy lived with his mother in the isolated mountain village of Araki and often came to the castle to sell charcoal, boiled meat, and other things. No potatoes today, but I brought this for Otsu. He held up a package wrapped in straw. What's that now? Rhubarb? No, it's alive. In Sugigase, I sometimes hear nightingales singing. I caught one. You always come by way of Sugikaze, don't you? That's right. That's the only road. Let me ask you a question. Have you seen a lot of samurai in that area lately? Some. What are they doing there? Building cabins. Have you seen them putting up fences, anything like that? No. Have they been cutting down plum trees? Well, besides the cabins, they have been fixing bridges. So they have been cutting down all kinds of trees, for firewood too. Are they stopping people on the road? I don't think so. I haven't seen them do that. Sugekuro cocked his head. I have heard those samurai are from Lord Todo's fief, but I don't know what they are doing in Sugigase. What do people in your village say? They say they are ronin chased out of Nara and Uji. They don't have any place to live, so they came to the mountains. Despite what Inshun had said, Sugekuro thought this is a not unreasonable explanation. Okubo Nagayasu, the magistrate of Nara, had not relaxed his efforts to keep his jurisdiction free of indigent ronin. Where's Otsu? Asked Ushinosuke. I want to give her her present. He always looked forward to seeing her, but not just because she gave him sweets and said nice things to him. There was something about her beauty that was mysterious, otherworldly. At times, she couldn't decide whether she was human or a goddess. She's in the castle, I imagine, said Sugekuro. Then, looking toward the garden, he said, Oh, you seem to be in luck. Isn't that her over there? Otsu, Ushinosuke called loudly. She turned and smiled. Running breathlessly to her side, he held up his package. Look, I caught a nightingale. It's for you. A nightingale? Frowning, she kept her hands close to her sides. Ushinosuke looked disappointed. It has a beautiful voice, he said. Wouldn't you like to hear it? I would, but only if it's free to fly wherever it wants to. Then it will sing pretty songs for us. I guess you are right, he said with a little pout. Do you want me to turn it loose? I appreciate your wanting to give me a present, but yes, that would make me happier than keeping it. Silently, Ushinosuke split open the straw package, and like an arrow, the bird flew away over the castle wall. There, you see how glad it is to be free, said Otsu. They call nightingales harbingers of spring, don't they? Maybe somebody will bring you good news. A messenger bringing news as welcome as the coming of spring? It's true there's something I'm longing to hear. As Otsu started walking toward the woods and bamboo grove in back of the castle, Ushinosuke fell in at her side. Where are you going? He asked. I've been inside a lot lately. I thought I would go up the hill and look at the plum blossoms for a change. Plum blossoms? Those up there aren't much to look at. You should go to Sugigase. That might be nice. Is it far? A couple of miles or so. Why don't you go? I brought firewood today, so I have the ox with me. Having scarcely been outside the castle all winter, Otsu made up her mind quickly. Without telling anyone where she was going, the two of them strolled down to the back gate, which was used by tradesmen and others having business at the castle. It was guarded by a samurai armed with a lance. He nodded and smiled at Otsu. Ushinosuke, too, was a familiar figure, and he let them out the gate without checking the boy's written permission to be in the castle grounds. People in the fields and on the road spoke a friendly greeting to Otsu, whether they knew her or not. When the dwellings became sparser, she looked back at the white castle, nestled on the skirt of the mountain, and said, Can I get back home while it's still light? Sure, but I will come back with you anyway. Araki village is beyond Tsukigase, isn't it? It doesn't matter. Chatting about various things, they passed a salt shop where a man was bartering some boar meat for a sack of salt. He finished his transaction, came out and walked along the road behind them. With the snow melting, the road grew worse and worse. There were few travelers. Ushinosuke, said Otsu, you always come to Koyagyu, don't you? Yes. Isn't Ueno Castle closer to Araki village? It is, but there is no great swordsman like Lord Yagyu at Ueno Castle. Do you like swords? Uh-huh. He stopped the ox, let go of the rope, and ran down to the edge of the stream. There was a bridge from which a log had fallen. He put it back in place and waited for the man behind them to cross first. The man looked like a ronin. As he walked by Otsu, he eyed her brazenly, then glanced back several times from the bridge and from the other side before disappearing into a fold of the mountain. Who do you suppose that is? Asked Otsu nervously. Did he frighten you? No, but there are lots of ronin in the mountains around here. Are there? She said uneasily. Over his shoulder, Ushinosuke said, Otsu, I wonder if you will help me. Do you think you could ask Master Kimura to hire me? I mean, I could sweep the garden, draw water, do things like that. It was only recently that the boy had received special permission from Sukekuro to enter the dojo and watch the men at practice, but already he had only one ambition. His ancestors bore the surname Kikumura. The head of the family for several generations had used the given name Mataemon. Ushinosuke had decided that when he became a samurai he would take the name Mataemon, but none of the Kikumuras had done anything of particular note. He would change his surname to that of his village, and if his dream came true, become famous far and wide as Araki Mataemon. As Otsu listened, she thought of Jotaro and was seized by a sense of loneliness. She was 25 now. He must be 19 or 20. Looking around at the plum blossoms, not yet in full bloom, she couldn't help but feel that spring had already passed for her. Let's go back, Ushinosuke, she said suddenly. He gave her a questioning look but obediently turned the ox around. Stop, shouted a loud male voice. Two other ronin had joined the one from the salt shop. All three came and stood around the ox with their arms folded. What do you want? Asked Ushinosuke. The men kept their eyes fixed on Otsu. I see what you mean, said one. She's a beauty, isn't she? I've seen her somewhere before, said the third man. In Kyoto, I think. She must be from Kyoto, certainly not from any of the villages around here. I don't remember whether it was at the Yoshioka school or somewhere else, but I know I have seen her. Were you at the Yoshioka school? For 3 years after Sekigahara. If you have got any business with us, say what it is, Ushinosuke said angrily. We want to get back before dark. One of the ronin glared at him as if noticing him for the first time. You are from Araki, aren't you? One of the charcoal makers. Yes, so what? We don't need you. Run along home. That's just what I'm going to do. He pulled the rope taut, and one man gave him a look that would have had most boys trembling with fright. Get out of the way, said Ushinosuke. This lady's going with us. Going where? What difference does it make to you? Give me that rope. No. Say, he doesn't think I mean it. The other two men, squaring their shoulders and glowering, moved in on Ushinosuke. One presented a fist as hard as a pine knot in front of his chin. Otsu clutch hit the ox back. The tilt of Ushinosuke's eyebrows said very clearly something was going to happen. Oh no, stop, she cried, hoping to keep the boy from doing anything rash. But the plaintive note in her voice just spurred him to action. He lashed out swiftly with one leg, caught the man in front of him, sending him staggering backward. No sooner was Ushinosuke's foot in contact with the ground again than he rammed his head into the gut of the man on his left. Simultaneously, he got a grip on the man's sword and pulled it from its scabbard. Then he began swinging. He moved with lightning quickness. He whirled and seemed to be attacking in every direction at the same time, all three opponents at once with equal force. Whether he was acting brilliantly out of instinct or out of childish recklessness, his unorthodox tactics took the Ronin by surprise. The reverse swing of the sword drove forcefully into the chest of one man, Otsu crying out, but her voice was drowned by the scream of the wounded man. He fell toward the ox, a geyser of blood spurting into the animal's face. Terrified, the ox let out an indescribable shriek. Just then, Ushinosuke's sword cut deeply into its rump. With another shriek, the ox set off at a near gallop. The other two Ronin rushed at Ushinosuke, who was leaping nimbly from rock to rock in the stream bed. I didn't do anything wrong, it was you, he shouted. Realizing he was out of their reach, the two Ronin started after the ox. Ushinosuke jumped back onto the road and took after them, shouting, "Running away, you running away?" One man stopped and half turned. "You little bastard! Leave him till later," shouted the other man. The ox, blind with fear, left the valley road and ran up a low hill, traveled a short distance along the crest and plunged down the other side. In a very short time, it covered a considerable distance, reaching a point not far from the Yagyu fief. Otsu, her eyes shut in resignation, managed to keep from being thrown by clinging to the pack saddle. She could hear the voices of the people they were passing, but was too stunned to utter a cry for help. Not that it would have done any good. None of the people commenting on the spectacle had the courage to stop the demented beast. When they were almost to Hanya Plain, a man came from a side road into the middle of the main road, which, though very narrow, was the Kasagi High Road. He had a leather case slung from his shoulder and appeared to be a manservant of some sort. People were shouting, "Watch out, get out of the way," but he walked on right in the path of the ox. Then there was a terrible cracking sound. He has been gored, the idiot. But it wasn't as if the bystanders first thought. The sound they had heard was not that of the ox striking the man, but of the man landing a stunning blow on the side of the animal's head. The ox lifted its heavy neck sideways, turned halfway around, and started back the other way. It hadn't gone 10 feet before it came to a dead halt, saliva streaming from its mouth, its whole body shaking. "Get down quick," the man said to Otsu. Onlookers crowded around excitedly, staring at the man's foot, which was firmly planted on the rope. Once she was safely on the ground, Otsu bowed to her rescuer, though she was still too dazed to know where she was or what she was doing. Why should a gentle animal like this go mad? Asked the man as he led the ox to the side of the road and tied it to a tree. Catching sight of the blood on the animal's legs, he said, "What's this now?" "Why, it has been cut with a sword." While he was examining the wound and muttering to himself, Kimura Sugekuro pushed through the ring of people and sent them on their way. "Aren't you Abbot Inshun's attendant?" he asked, even before he had had a chance to catch his breath. "How fortunate to meet you here, sir. I have a letter for you from the abbot. If you don't mind, I would like to ask you to read it immediately." He took the letter from the case and handed it to Sugekuro. "For me?" Sugekuro asked with surprise. Having ascertained there was no mistake, he opened it and read, "Regarding the samurai at Sugikase, I have, since our conversation yesterday, verified that they are not Lord Todo's men. They are riff-raff ronin expelled from the cities, who have holed up there for the winter. I hasten to inform you of this unfortunate error on my part." "Thank you," said Sugekuro. "This agrees with what I have learned from another source. Tell the abbot I am much relieved and trust that he is too. Forgive me for delivering the letter in the middle of the road. I will convey your message to the abbot. Goodbye." "Wait a minute. How long have you been at the Hozoin?" "Not long. What's your name?" "I am called Torazo." "I wonder," mumbled Sugekuro, scrutinizing the man's face. "Are you by any chance Hamada Toranosuke?" "No, I have never met Hamada, but there's a man at the castle who insists Hamada's now serving as Inshun's attendant." "Yes, sir." "Is it a case of mistaken identity?" Torazo, red in the face, lowered his voice. "Actually, I am Hamada. I have come to the Hozoin for reasons of my own, to avoid further disgrace to my teacher and greater shame to myself. I would like to keep my identity secret, if you don't mind." "Don't worry, I had no intention of prying into your affairs. I'm sure you have heard about Tadaaki. His abandoning his school and retiring to the mountains was due to a mistake of mine. I have given up my status. Doing menial tasks at the temple will be good discipline. I didn't give the priest my real name. It's all very embarrassing. The outcome of Tadaaki's fight with Kojiro is no secret. Kojiro told everyone he met between Edo and Buzen. I take it you have resolved to clear your teacher's name. One of these days I will see you again, sir." Torazo took his leave swiftly, as though unable to endure another moment. Hemp Seed. Hyogo was growing concerned. After going to Otsu's room with a letter from Takuan in his hand, he had searched for her all over the castle grounds more and more urgently as the hours passed. The letter, dated the 10th month of the previous year but inexplicably delayed, told of Musashi's pending appointment as an instructor to the shogun. Takuan had asked that Otsu come to the capital as soon as possible, since Musashi would soon need a house as well as someone to look after it. Hyogo couldn't wait to see her face light up. Not finding her, he finally went to question the guard at the gate and was told men were out looking for her. Hyogo took a deep breath, thinking how unlike Otsu it was to cause people to worry. How unlike her not to leave word. She rarely acted impulsively, even in the smallest matters. Before he began to imagine the worst, however, news came that they were back, Otsu with Sugekuro and Ushinosuke with the men sent to Sujigase. The boy, apologizing to everyone for no one knew what, was obviously in a hurry to be on his way. "Where do you think you are going?" asked one of the attendants. "I've got to get back to Araki. My mother will worry if I don't." "If you're trying to go back now," said Sugekuro, "those Ronin will get you, and it's not likely they will let you go alive. You can stay here tonight and go home in the morning." Ushinosuke mumbled something vaguely acquiescent, and was told to go to a wood storehouse in the outer encyclement, where the apprentice samurai slept. Beckoning to Otsu, Hyogo took her aside and told her what Takuan had written. He wasn't surprised when she said, "I'll leave in the morning," a deep blush revealing her feelings. Hyogo then reminded her of Munenori's coming visit and suggested she return to Edo with him, though he knew quite well what her answer would be. She was in no mood to wait 2 more days, much less 2 more months. He made another attempt, saying that if she waited until after the funeral service, she could travel with him as far as Nagoya, since he had been invited to become a vassal of Lord Tokugawa of Owari. When she again demurred, he told her how much the idea of her making the long journey alone displeased him. In every town and inn along the way, she would encounter inconveniences, if not actual danger. She smiled. "You seem to forget. I'm used to traveling. There's nothing for you to worry about." That evening, at a modest farewell party, everyone expressed his affection for Otsu, and the next morning, which was bright and clear, family and servants gathered at the front gate to see her off. Sugekuro sent a man to fetch Ushinosuke, thinking that Otsu could ride his ox as far as Uji. When the man returned and reported the boy had gone home the night before after all, Sugekuro ordered a horse to be brought. Otsu, feeling she was of too low a status to be so favored, refused the offer, but Hyogo insisted. The horse, a dapple gray, was led by an apprentice samurai down the gentle slope to the outer gate. Hyogo went part way, then stopped. He wouldn't deny it. At times he envied Musashi, as he would have envied any man whom Otsu loved. That her heart belonged to another did not diminish his affection for her. She had been a delightful companion on the trip down from Edo, and in the subsequent weeks and months he had marveled at the devotion with which she had cared for his grandfather. Though deeper than ever, his love for her was selfless. Seiki Shusai had instructed him to deliver her to Musashi safely. Hyogo intended to do just that. It wasn't his nature to covet another man's good fortune, nor to think of depriving him of it. He could not think of any act as being apart from the way of the samurai. Carrying out his grandfather's wish would in itself have been an expression of his love. He was lost in reverie when Otsu turned and bowed her thanks to her well-wishers. As she set off, she brushed against some plum blossoms. Unconsciously watching the petals fall, Hyogo could almost smell the fragrance. He felt he was seeing her for the last time, and took comfort in a silent prayer for her future life. He stood and stared as she disappeared from sight. "Sir?" Hyogo turned around, and a smile came slowly to his face. "Ushinosuke, well, well, I hear you went home last night after I told you not to." "Yes, sir, my mother." He was still at an age when mention of separation from his mother brought him to the verge of tears. "That's all right. It's good for a boy to take care of his mother. But How did you get by those ronins at Tsukigase? Oh, that was easy. Was it now? The boy smiled. They weren't there. They heard Otsu was from the castle, so they were afraid of being attacked. I guess they must have gone to the other side of the mountain. Ha ha. We don't have to worry about them anymore, do we? Have you had breakfast? No, said Ushinosuke, slightly embarrassed. I got up early to dig some wild potatoes for Master Kimura. If you like them, I'll bring you some too. Thank you. Do you know where Otsu is? She just left for Edo. Edo? Hesitantly, he said, I wonder if she asked you or Master Kimura what I wanted her to. And what was that? I have been hoping he would let me become a samurai's attendant. You are still a little too young for that, maybe when you are older. But I want to learn swordsmanship. Won't you teach me, please? I have to learn while my mother is still alive. Have you been studying under someone? No, but I have practiced using my wooden sword on trees and animals. That's a good way to start. When you get a little older, you can come and join me in Nagoya. I'm going there to live soon. That's way off in Owari, isn't it? I can't go so far away, not while my mother is still alive. Hyogo, not unmoved, said, Come with me. Ushinosuke followed along silently. We will go to the dojo. I will see if you have the natural ability to become a swordsman. The dojo, Ushinosuke wondered if he was dreaming. Since early childhood, he had regarded the ancient Yagyu dojo as symbolizing everything he aspired to in the world. Though Sugekuro had said he could enter, he had not done so yet. But now, to be invited inside by a member of the family. Rinse your feet. Yes, sir. Ushinosuke went to a small pond near the entrance and very carefully washed his feet, taking care to remove the dirt from under his toenails. Once inside, he felt small and insignificant. The beams and rafters were old and massive, the floor polished to a sheen he could see his reflection in. Even Hyogo's voice when he said get a sword sounded different. Ushinosuke selected a black oak sword from among the weapons hanging on one wall. Hyogo took one too and with the point directed toward the floor, walked to the middle of the room. Are you ready? He asked coldly. Yes, said Ushinosuke, raising his weapon to chest level. Hyogo opened his stance slightly on the diagonal. Ushinosuke was puffed up like a hedgehog. His eyebrows were raised, his face was set in a fierce frown, and his blood raced. When Hyogo signaled with his eyes that he was about to attack, Ushinosuke grunted loudly. Feet pounding the floor, Hyogo advanced rapidly and struck laterally at Ushinosuke's waist. Not yet, shouted the boy, as though kicking the floor away from him. He leaped high in the air, clearing Hyogo's shoulder. Hyogo reached out with his left hand and lightly pushed the boy's feet upward. Ushinosuke did a somersault and landed behind Hyogo. He was up in a split second, running to retrieve his sword. That's enough, said Hyogo. No, once more. Grabbing his sword, Ushinosuke held it high over his head with both hands and flew like an eagle toward Hyogo. Hyogo's weapon, aimed straight at him, stopped him dead in his tracks. He saw the look in Hyogo's eyes and his own filled with tears. This boy has spirit, thought Hyogo, but he pretended to be angry. You are fighting dirty, he shouted. You jumped over my shoulder. Ushinosuke did not know what to say to that. You don't understand your status, taking liberties with your betters. Sit down right there. The boy knelt and put his hands out in front of him to bow in apology. As he came toward him, Hugo dropped the wooden sword and drew his own weapon. I'll kill you now. Don't bother to scream. Kill me? Stick out your neck. For a samurai, nothing is more important than abiding by the rules of proper conduct. Even if you are only a farm boy, what you did is unforgivable. You are going to kill me just for doing something rude? That's right. After looking up at the samurai for a moment, Ushinosuke, resignation in his eyes, lifted his hands in the direction of his village and said, Mother, I'm going to become part of the soil here at the castle. I know how sad you will feel. Forgive me for not being a good son. Then he obediently extended his neck. Hyogo laughed and put his sword back in its scabbard. Patting Ushinosuke on the back, he said, You don't think I would really kill a boy like you, do you? You weren't serious? No. You said proper conduct is important. Is it alright for a samurai to play jokes like that? It wasn't like that. If you are going to train to become a samurai, I have to know what you are made of. I thought you meant it, said Ushinosuke, his breathing returning to normal. You told me you hadn't had lessons, said Hyogo. But when I forced you to the edge of the room, you jumped over my shoulder. Not many students, even with 3 or 4 years of training, could execute that ploy. I never studied with anyone, though. It's nothing to hide. You must have had a teacher, and a good one. Who was he? The boy thought for a moment, then said, Oh, I remember how I learned that. Who taught you? It wasn't a human being. A goblin, maybe? No, a hemp seed. What? A hemp seed. How could you learn from a hemp seed? Well, way up in the mountains, there are some of those fighters, the ones who seem to disappear right in front of your eyes. I watched them train a couple of times. You mean the ninja, don't you? It must have been the EGOT group you saw. But what does that have to do with a hemp seed? Well, after hemp's planted in the spring, it doesn't take long before a little sprout comes up. Yes? You jump over it. Every day you practice jumping back and forth. When it gets warmer, the sprout grows faster. Nothing else grows as fast, so you have to jump higher every day. If you don't practice every day, it's not long before the hemp is so high you can't jump over it. I see. I did it last year and the year before that, from spring till fall. Sugekuro came into the dojo just then and said, Hyogo, here's another letter from Edo. After Hyogo read it, he said, Otsu couldn't have gone very far, could she? Not more than 5 miles, probably. Has something came up? Yes, Takuan says Musashi's appointment has been cancelled. They seem to have doubts about his character. I don't think we should let Otsu go on to Edo without telling her. I will go. No, I will go myself. With a nod to Ushinosuke, Hyogo left the dojo and went directly to the stable. He was halfway up to Uji when he began to have second thoughts. Musashi's not receiving the appointment would make no difference to Otsu. She was thinking of the man himself, not his status. Even if Hyogo managed to persuade her to stay a while longer in Koyagyu, she would no doubt want to go on to Edo. Why spoil her journey by telling her the bad news? He turned back toward Koyagyu and slowed down to a trot. Though he appeared to be at peace with the world, a fierce battle raged in his heart. If only he could see Otsu once more. While he had to admit to himself this was the real reason for going after her, he would not have admitted it to anyone else. Hyogo trying to rein in his emotions. Warriors had weak moments, foolish moments like everybody else. Still, his duty, that of every samurai, was clear: to preserve, to persevere until he reached a state of stoic balance. Once he had crossed the barrier of illusion, his soul would be light and free, his eyes open to the green willows around him, to every blade of grass. Love was not the only emotion capable of firing a samurai's heart. His was another world. In an age hungry for young men of talent, this was no time to be distracted by a flower along the wayside. What was important, as Hyogo saw it, was to be in the right place to ride the wave of the times. Quite a crowd, isn't it? Hyogo remarked lightheartedly. Yes, Nara doesn't have many days as fine as this, replied Sugekuro. It's like an outing. Following a few steps behind them was Ushinosuke, for whom Hyogo was developing quite a fondness. The boy came to the castle more frequently now and was on his way to becoming a regular attendant. He carried their lunches on his back and had an extra pair of sandals for Hyogo tied to his obi. They were in an open field in the middle of town. On one side, the five-story pagoda of the Kofukuji rose above the surrounding woods. Visible across the field were the houses of the Buddhist and Shinto priests. Though the day was bright and the air spring-like, a thin mist hung over the lower areas where townsmen lived. The crowd, numbering between 400 and 500 people, did not seem that large because of the vastness of the field. Some of the deer, for which Nara was famous, were nosing their way among the spectators, sniffing out tasty morsels of food here and there. They haven't finished already, have they? Asked Hyogo. No, said Sugekuro. They seem to be taking time off for lunch, so even priests have to eat. Sugekuro laughed. The occasion was a show of sorts. The larger cities had theaters, but in Nara and the smaller towns, shows were held in the open air. Magicians, dancers, puppeteers, as well as archers and swordsmen all performed outdoors. Today's attraction was more than mere entertainment, though. Each year, the Lancer priests of the Hosoin held a tournament at which they decided the order of seating at the temple. Since they were performing in public, the competitors fought hard and the bouts were often violent and spectacular. There was a sign in front of the Kofukuji clearly stating that the tournament was open to all who were devoted to the martial arts, but the outsiders who dared face the Lancer priests were very, very few. Why don't we sit down somewhere and have our lunch, said Hyogo. We seem to have plenty of time. Where would be a good spot, said Sugekuro, looking around. Over here, called Ushinosuke, you can sit on this. He indicated a piece of reed matting he had picked up somewhere and spread on a pleasant knoll. Hyogo admired the boy's resourcefulness and, in general, was pleased by the way his needs were looked after. Although he did not regard solicitousness as an ideal quality for a future samurai, after they had arranged themselves, Ushinosuke passed out their simple fare: balls of unpolished rice, sour plum pickles, and sweetish bean paste, all wrapped in dry bamboo to make them easier to carry. Ushinosuke, said Sugekuro, run over to those priests there and get some tea, but don't tell them who it is for. It would be a nuisance if they came over to pay their respects, added Hyogo, who had a basket hat pulled down over his face. Sugekuro's features were more than half hidden by a bandana of the type worn by priests. As Ushinosuke got to his feet, another boy, about 50 feet away, was saying, "I can't understand it. The matin was right here." "Forget it, Iori," said Konosuke. "It's no great loss. Somebody must have swiped it. Who do you suppose would do a thing like that?" "Don't worry about it." Konosuke sat down on the grass, took out his brush and ink, and began listing his expenses in a small notebook, a habit he had recently acquired from Iori. In some ways, Iori was too serious for his years. He paid close attention to his personal finances, never wasted a thing, was meticulously neat, and felt grateful for every bowl of rice every fair day. He was, in short, fastidious, and he looked down on people who were not. For anyone who would walk off with another person's property, even if it was only a cheap piece of matting, he had only contempt. "Oh, there it is," he cried. "Those men over there took it. Hey, you!" He ran toward them, but stopped about 10 paces short to consider what he was going to say, and found himself face to face with Ushinosuke. "What do you want?" growled Ushinosuke. "What do you mean, what do I want?" snapped Iori, regarding him with the coldness country folk reserve for outsiders. Ushinosuke said, "You are the one who called to us. Anybody who goes off with somebody else's things is a thief." "Thief? Why, you son of a bitch, that matting belongs to us." "Matting? I found it lying on the ground. Is that all you're upset about?" "A mat's important to a traveler," said Iori rather pompously. "It protects him from the rain, provides him with something to sleep on, lots of things. Give it back." "You can have it, but first take back what you said about me being a thief." "I don't have to apologize to get back what belongs to us. If you don't give it back, I'll take it back." "Just try it. I'm Ushinosuke of Araki. I have no intention of losing to a rent like you. I'm the disciple of a samurai." "I bet you are," said Iori, standing a little straighter. "You talk big with all these people around, but you wouldn't dare fight if we were by ourselves." "I won't forget that. Come over there later." "Where?" "By the pagoda. Come alone." They parted. Ushinosuke went for the tea, and by the time he came back with an earthenware teapot, the matches were underway again. Standing in a large circle with the other spectators, Ushinosuke looked pointedly at Iori, challenging him with his eyes. Iori's eyes answered. Both believed that winning was all that counted. The noisy crowd pushed this way and that, raising yellow clouds of dust. In the center of the cycle stood a priest with a lance as long as a fowling pole. One after another, rivals stepped forward and challenged him. One after another, they were struck to the ground or sent flying through the air. "Come forward," he cried, but eventually no more came. "If there's no one else, I'm going to leave. Is there any objection to declaring me Nankobo the winner?" After studying under NA, he had created a style of his own and was now the chief rival of Inshun, who was absent today on the pretext of illness. No one knew whether he was afraid of Nankobo or preferred to avoid conflict. When no one came forward, the burly priest lowered his lance, holding it horizontally, and announced, "There is no challenger." "Wait," called a priest, running out in front of Nankobo. "I am Da'an, a disciple of Inshun. I challenge you." "Get ready." After bowing to each other, the two men jumped apart. Their two lenses stared at each other like living beings for such a long time that the crowd bored began shouting for action. Then all at once the shouting ceased. Nankobo's lance thudded into Darwin's head, and like a scarecrow toppled by the wind, his body leaned slowly to the side, then fell suddenly to the ground. 3 or 4 lancers ran forward, not to take revenge, but merely to drag the body away. Nankobo arrogantly threw back his shoulders and surveyed the crowd. There seem to be a few brave men left. If indeed there are, come ahead. A mountain priest stepped out from behind a tent, took his traveling chest off his back, and asked, "Is the tournament open only to lancers of the Hozoin?" "No," chorused the Hozoin priest. The priest bowed. "In that case, I would like to try my hand. Can anyone lend me a wooden sword?" Hyogo glanced at Sugekuro and said, "This is getting interesting." "It is, isn't it?" "No question about the outcome. I don't suppose there is any chance of Nankobo's losing." "That's not what I meant. I don't think Nankobo will agree to fight. If he does, he will lose." Sugekuro looked puzzled, but didn't ask for an explanation. Someone handed the vagabond priest a wooden sword. He walked up to Nankobo, bowed, and issued his challenge. He was a man of about 40, but his body, like spring steel, strongly suggested training not in the ascetic fashion of mountain priests, but on the battlefield. A man who must have faced death many times and would be prepared to accept it philosophically. His manner of speaking was soft, his eyes placid. Despite his arrogance, Nankobo was no fool. "Are you an outsider?" he asked pointlessly. "Yes," replied the challenger with another bow. "Wait just a minute." Nankobo saw 2 things clearly. His technique might be better than the priest. He couldn't win in the long run. Quite a few celebrated warriors defeated at Sekigahara were still masquerading as wandering priests. There was no telling who this man was. "I can't take on an outsider," he said, shaking his head. "I just asked the rules and was told it was all right. It may be all right with others, but I prefer not to fight outsiders. When I fight, it's not for the purpose of defeating my opponent. It's a religious activity in which I discipline my soul by means of the lens." "I see," said the priest with a little laugh. He seemed to have something more to say, but hesitated. After mulling it over for a moment, he retired from the ring, returned the wooden sword, and disappeared. Nankobo chose this time to make his exit, ignoring the whispered comments that it was cowardly of him to back out. Trailed by 2 or 3 disciples, he strode away grandly, like a conquering general. "What did I tell you?" said Hyogo. "You were absolutely right. That man is without a doubt one of those hiding out on Mount Kudo. Change his white robe and bandana for a helmet and armor, and you will find you are looking at one of the great swordsmen of a few years ago." When the crowd thinned out, Sugekuro began looking around for Ushinosuke. He didn't find him. At a signal from Iori, he had gone over to the pagoda, where now they stood glaring fiercely at each other. "Don't blame me if you get killed," said Iori. "You talk big," said Ushinosuke, picking up a stick to use as a weapon. Iori, sword held high, rushed to the attack. Ushinosuke jumped up, thinking he was afraid. Iori ran straight at him. Ushinosuke leaped over him, kicking him in the side of the head. Iori's head went to his head. Iori's hand went to his head and he crashed to the ground. Recovering quickly, he was on his feet again in no time. The two boys faced each other with their weapons raised. Forgetting what Musashi and Konosuke had taught him, Iori charged with his eyes shut. Ushinosuke moved slightly to one side and knocked him down with his stick. Iori lay on his stomach, moaning, sword still in hand. "Huh, I won," shouted Ushinosuke. Then, noticing that Iori was not moving at all, he grew frightened and ran. "No, you don't," roared Konosuke, his forefoot staff catching the boy on the hip. Ushinosuke fell with a shriek of pain, but after one look at Konosuke, he got to his feet and bounded off like a rabbit, only to collide head-on with Sugekuro. "Ushinosuke, what's going on here?" Ushinosuke quickly hid behind Sugekuro, leaving the samurai face to face with Konosuke. For a moment, it appeared that a clash was inevitable. Sugekuro's hand went to his sword. Konosuke tightened his grip on the staff. "Would you mind telling me," asked Sugekuro, "why you are chasing a mere child as though you wanted to kill him?" "Before I answer, let me ask a question. Did you see him knock that boy down? Is he with you?" "Yes." "Is this one of your attendants?" "Not officially." Looking sternly at Ushinosuke, he asked, "Why did you hit the boy and run away? Tell the truth now." Before Ushinosuke could open his mouth, Iori raised his head and shouted. It was about. Rising painfully to a sitting position, he said, "We had a bout and I lost." "Did you two challenge each other in the proper way and agree to fight it out?" asked Konosuke. There was a trace of amusement in his eyes as he looked from one to the other. Ushinosuke, deeply embarrassed, said, "I didn't know it was his mat when I picked it up." The two men grinned at each other, both aware that if they had not acted with restraint themselves, a trivial childish affair could have ended in bloodshed. "I'm very sorry about this," said Sugekuro. "So am I. I hope you will forgive me." "Don't mention it. My master's waiting for us, so I think we better go." They went out the gate laughing, Konosuke and Iori going to the left, Sugekuro and Ushinosuke to the right. Then Konosuke turned and said, "Could I ask you something? If we go straight down this road, will it take us to Koyagyu Castle?" Sugekuro walked over to Konosuke and some minutes later, when Hyogo joined them, told him who the travelers were and why they were here. Hyogo sighed sympathetically. "That's too bad. If only you had come 3 weeks ago, before Otsu left to join Musashi in Edo." "He's not in Edo," said Konosuke. "No one knows where he is, not even his friends." "What will she do now?" said Hyogo, regretting he hadn't brought Otsu back to Koyagyu. Though he held back his tears, Iori really wanted to go somewhere all alone and cry his heart out. On the way down, he had talked incessantly of meeting Otsu, or so it had seemed to Konosuke. As the men's conversation shifted to events in Edo, he slowly drifted away. Hyogo asked Konosuke for more information about Musashi, for news about his uncle, for details about the disappearance of Ono Tadaaki. There seemed to be no end either to his questions or to Konosuke's supply of information. "Where are you going?" Ushinosuke asked Iori, coming up behind him and laying a sympathetic hand on his shoulder. "Are you crying?" "Of course not," but as he shook his head, the tears flew. Do you know how to dig wild potatoes? Sure. There are some potatoes over there. You want to see who can dig the fastest? Iori accepted the challenge and they began digging. It was getting late in the day, and since there was still much to talk about, Hyogo urged Konosuke to spend a few days at the castle. Konosuke, however, said he preferred to continue his journey. While they were saying their farewells, they noticed the blinds were missing again. After a moment, Sugekuro pointed and said, "There they are, over there. They seem to be digging." Iori and Ushinosuke were absorbed in their work, which, because of the brittleness of the roots, involved digging carefully to a great depth. The men, amused at their concentration, walked quietly up behind them and watched for several minutes before Ushinosuke looked up and saw them. He gasped slightly, and Iori turned around and grinned. Then they redoubled their efforts. "I've got it," cried Ushinosuke, pulling up a long potato and laying it on the ground. Seeing Iori's arm sunk in the hole up to his shoulder, Konosuke said impatiently, "If you don't finish soon, I'm going on by myself." Placing his hand on his hip like an aged farmer, Iori forced himself to a standing position and said, "I can't do it. It will take me the rest of the day." With a look of resignation, he brushed the dirt off his kimono. "You can't get the potato out after you have dug that far?" asked Ushinosuke. "Here, I'll pull it out for you." "No," said Iori, pulling back Ushinosuke's hand. "It will break." He gently pushed the dirt back in the hole and packed it down. "Fine," called Ushinosuke, proudly shouldering his potato and accidentally revealing that the tip was broken off. Seeing that, Hyogo said, "You lost. You may have won the fight, but you are disqualified from the potato digging contest." Sweepers and salesmen. The cherry blossoms were pale past their prime, and the thistle blossoms were wilting, hinting nostalgically of the time centuries ago when Nara had been the capital. It was a little warm for walking, but neither Konosuke nor Iori tired of the road. Iori tugged at Konosuke's sleeve and said worriedly, "That man's still following us." Keeping his eyes straight ahead, Konosuke said, "Pretend you don't see him. He has been behind us ever since we left the Kofukuji. Um, and he was at the inn where we stay, wasn't he? Don't let it worry you. We don't have anything worth stealing. We have our lives. They are not nothing. Ha ha. I keep my life locked up, don't you?" "I can take care of myself." Iori tightened the grip of his left hand on his scabbard. Konosuke knew the man was the mountain priest who had challenged Nankobo the previous day, but couldn't imagine why he would be tailing them. Iori looked around again and said, "He's not there anymore." Konosuke looked back too. He probably got tired. He took a deep breath and added, "But it does make me feel better." They put up at a farmer's house that night and early the next morning reached Amano in Kawachi. This was a small village of low-eaved houses, behind which ran a stream of pristine mountain water. Konosuke had come to have the memorial tablet to his mother placed in the Kongoji, the so-called Women's Mount Koya. But first he wanted to look up a woman named Oen, whom he had known since childhood, so there would be someone to burn incense before the tablet from time to time. If she could not be found, he intended to go on to Mount Koya, the burial place of the rich and the mighty. He hoped he wouldn't have to. Going there would make him feel like a beggar. Asking directions from a shopkeeper's wife, he was told that Oen was the wife of a brewer named Toroku, and their house was the fourth one on the right inside the temple gate. As he went through the gate, Konosuke wondered if the woman knew what she was talking about, for there was a sign saying that bringing sake and leeks into the sacred compound was prohibited. How could there be a brewer here? How could there be a brewer there? This little mystery was cleared up that evening by Toroku,